Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Chapter 13, the title being Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. In other words, the topic of differentiation between the known and the knower. So this means we have to now investigate what is the known, what is the knower, and how does this specifically apply to us, and how can this transform our direct recognition about ourselves and the world. So we're not going to just theorize about it, but we're also going to make it into a practical teaching. In chapter 13, Shri Krishna talks about several topics. He talks about the entire reality, number one. That means everything that we can imagine or not imagine, everything known and unknown, consisting of only two categories, subject and object. In other words, kshetrajna and kshetram. So when I say subject, I'm talking about kshetrajna. Kshetram is the object. So this means if we can understand these two principles, we have understood at once the entire reality, because they do not exclude anything. Furthermore, Krishna talks about the values required to know this reality, which I'm speaking of, with unmistakable clarity. That is, without confusing my own or dumping my own subjectivity onto it and then thinking, yep, I've got it. And in order to ascertain with clarity, we need what's called jnanam. So in this case, jnanam doesn't just mean knowledge, but it means values or virtues required to be cultivated in order to, with lucidity, recognize the full reality. Krishna also talks about the truth to be known. That is, what is to be known. And this is called jneyam. And finally, Krishna is going to reveal what is the Lord's relationship with his creative power called Prakriti or Purusha. So all of these topics we will investigate in detail in chapter 13. In verse 1, Krishna takes on the first two words, which are kshetrajna and kshetram. And how do we start? Last week, we started with kshetram. So what is kshetram refer to? So when I say kshetram, I am referring to anything known right now. So anything that you know right now about anything, that is kshetram. This means there's not one thing that you can know that is not kshetram. So what is kshetram again? Absolutely anything known. By whom? By the knower. What is the knower? We will discuss that. But for now, whatever is known within, without, anywhere, at any time in the past, present, and future is kshetram. It refers to also the body-mind, because your body-mind is known. Whatever's happening in the body, a pain, some sensation, a headache, an ache, that is known. Whatever thought, emotion is occurring, that is known. And what is kshetram? Known. Therefore, kshetram also includes the body-mind. It also includes the universe, because whatever we think about, whatever we observe, whatever we perceive is also known to the knower. That is also known. So whatever level you look at, how deep you look at reality, whatever is looked at, whatever is perceived is still kshetram. Why? Because it is still an object of knowledge. It is still known. Kshetram has two meanings. This is where we stopped last week. Meaning one. What is meaning one? That which undergoes transformation, unceasing transformation. Find me one thing in this universe that doesn't undergo unceasing transformation. Can you think of anything? See, even if you said something, I'm going to say, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say, how long ago did you say that? 1 second ago. In other words, that itself was subject to time because it's gone. So even if you say, oh, you know, a Brahman. Okay, how long did you say that? 1 second ago. That too was just words, gone. It was kshetram because it was object of knowledge. In order to now in reference to our bodies, let's get personal, in reference to our bodies, this which undergoes transformation, what is it specifically? We use the 5 kosha model. So what do I mean by this? By recognizing what is known to us in our bodies, in our minds, then whatever is left is kshetrajna. That is the final reality, the knower. So why is this 5 kosha? When I say kosha, I'm talking about layers or superimposition, atyasa, that which superimposes itself onto something else. Why is this model important? Because in Vedanta, we have something called upadhi and upahita. Now, what is upadhi and upahita? This is an important understanding. So suppose I have props prepared tonight. Suppose we take a jug that is clear, right? It is transparent. In fact, it's not really transparent now because you can kind of see the colors behind, right? But let's make it more obvious. Suppose I put a red glass behind. Now, to what does this redness belong to? Does it belong to the cup or does it belong to the jar? It belongs to the cup. So if I hold this, what is now upadhi? Upadhi is this cup. So what is upadhi? It means that which borrows or lends its existence to something else. That which as though lends its attributes to something else. In this case, what is this cup lending? It is lending the redness to this. And this is called upahita. What is upahita? That one which as if takes on attributes of something else. Has the jar actually taken on attributes of the redness? Shake head? No. To what does the redness belong to? It belongs to the upadhi. So now let's go back to the question. Why is this 5 kosha model significant? Because the 5 kosha is nothing but upadhi, that which as though lends its attributes to the kshetrajna, that is, to consciousness. And therefore, it's very hard to now tell to what or to which one does this redness belong to. Is it to me, the knower, or is it to something else? Therefore, what are we doing? By first recognizing what is the 5 kosha model, what is the kshetram, then we can negate that, and then what remains? The kshetrajna. That means with lucidity, I can now know who I am as this pure consciousness. So this is the concept behind this kshetra and kshetrajna viveka yoga, the distinction between the two. Okay, is that clear? Upadhi and upahita. What is upadhi? Someone tell me, please.
That which lends its existence or attributes to something else.
100%. And upahita?
That one which as though takes on the attributes of something else.
100%. Wow, Thomas is on top of it. 20 thumbs up. Okay, well done. Okay, so last week we started with 2 koshas. We began with Annamaya kosha, the grossest of the grossest. So Annamaya kosha means the food layer. Okay, can someone tell me a few qualities about the Annamaya kosha? What is the Annamaya kosha and any more attributes about it?
It is, as the name says, it is made up of the food that we eat.
Good. Food. So this means, in other words, when you come onto a scale and you look down and you go yay or nay, what is that yay or nay referring to? It is referring to but this package called food put together. A bunch of cucumbers, masalas, and dosas squeezed together inside a package. We didn't go, oh, that's a really hot person or some babe or something like that. Just food. Also, what else do we say about Annamaya kosha? It has 5 organs of perception. So this means this instrument called body is endowed with an instrument called the eyes, that is sight, hearing, in order to interface with the world. How? By also being endowed with 5 organs of action. So this means by my sight, I need to respond through my vak, through my speech. So therefore, 5 organs of perception and 5 organs of action is the endowment given to this Annamaya Kosha so that it can engage with the world and therefore exhaust its prarabdha karma, and therefore go through experiences for the sake of attaining one of those four goals in the Vedas: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. It is up to the person. Okay. Then we proceeded onto the pranamaya kosha. This means the life force layer, the layer of energy. In some schools we call this chi. That's why we have qigong. We have spirit. We have energy qigong. So this means we're working with the energy in the body. Now, how to understand the invisible prana, that is chi, another name for it? Just think of prana as the intelligence which maintains different body functions. For example, it gives this body sentiency. How does it do this? We have prana. Prana is for automating breathing, inhale and exhale. We have apana. This is for helping the body excrete toxins like food. We have samana. This is regulating digestion, so that digestion actually has the ability to digest food and distribute that nutrition throughout the various body systems. We have dhyana. Dhyana is an intelligence which helps and maintains and sustains the circulation throughout the brain, throughout the heart, throughout the entire nervous system. We have udana. Udana is prana of reversal. What reverses in our bodies? Burping, vomiting. What else reverses? At the time of conception, what happens? The subtle body, the sukshma sharira, binds with the sthula sharira, with the physical body. But at death, what happens? That process reverses. Therefore, udana is the reversal prana, that which separates the subtle body, the mind, from the physical body at the time of death. That is why it's a reversal prana. So that's the last prana that is operational right before we say, oh, the soul has left the body. Common question, people say, what is the soul, right? Because that's the English word. We don't use this in Vedanta. So soul means simply the subtle body. This means the subtle body that is still carrying ignorance with it. Now it's going to go and find a new body and then start a new life. So that's what a soul means.
So does the mind also fall under Annamaya Kosha?
No, mind will be Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha. So, okay, so good. So when I said now soul, I said the Sukshma Sharira, right? The subtle body. Subtle body equals Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, which I will now explain what they are. And what dies? The Annamaya Kosha. That's what we see in the hospital. In fact, you see, if you look at, listen to near-death experiences, right, which I do a lot because it's just interesting to listen, you'll see that the person can sometimes even see their own body, right? They can even hear what the doctors are saying and they're trying to recover the body. And usually, the person kind of sees some light and then, they're like, some angel says, come back, you haven't finished your business. In other words, you still have prarabdha karma to exhaust. And then the moment they decide to come back, the body comes back. In other words, the body depends on the mind. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetram Ityabhidhiyate Etadyo Vetitam Prahuhu Kshetrajna Iti Tadvidaha.
Sri Bhagavan said, Kaunteya Arjuna, this body is called field. The one who knows this field is the knower of the field. Thus say those who know that.
So let's continue. Talking about the 5 layers. Now the mind layer, Manomaya Kosha. Kosha, as I said, is upadhi, superimposition. Okay, what is the mind? That's the question. The mind, the Manomaya Kosha, produces emotions that correspond to thoughts. The mind produces or is responsible for producing emotions that correspond to thoughts. If you have a thought of some nice, some pleasant experience in the past, then that is a thought that's going to be sent to the Manomaya Kosha and produce a corresponding emotion. And that emotion is then going to manifest at the level of the brain chemistry. And that is the Annamaya Kosha. Because what is the brain? Annamaya Kosha. The physical body. So again, the mind produces an emotion that corresponds to the thought. And then it sends that emotion to be interpreted, to be converted at the level of the brain chemistry, which our instruments can then pick up. How? We can see the limbic system. We can see the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, and the amygdala. They can produce serotonin, dopamine, cortisol, estrogen, testosterone. They can produce many hormones. Where are those hormones coming from? They're coming from the mind. Where is the mind coming from? Where is that emotion coming from? From the thought. Okay, so that's number one. Number one, mind responsible for converting emotions or thoughts to a corresponding thought. Function two of the mind. It gathers the 5 sensory data and it produces one total scene out of that environment. So your eyes are individually seeing what? Form, shape, color. Ears are individually picking up sound waves. Nose is picking up the smells. All of that data goes where? Into the mind. So all of these 5 different data go into the screen of the mind, and then what does the mind do? It produces one total scene, which you are now witnessing. In fact, you're witnessing now a screen, my face. You may be witnessing other faces. You may be your laptop and all that. Where is that happening? That's happening in the mind. What's putting that scene together? In the mind. What happens when people take LSD? What is this lysergic acid attached to? It attaches to the serotonin receptors, does it not? And then what happens? The person starts to see visual hallucinations. Why? What do we just say the mind? The mind is that which takes the 5 sensory data and makes one total scene. We also said the mind is responsible for emotions. Is serotonin not responsible for emotions? Yes. Therefore, what does lysergic acid do? It attaches to the serotonin receptors in the brain, and that sends the data back to the mind, and therefore now the mind is distorted, and therefore you see what's actually not there. Why? Because the mind is responsible for producing one total scene. But what has the LSD done? It has intercepted that process by attaching itself to the serotonin receptors. And that therefore skews what the mind, or how the mind is able to construct the one total scene. That is why you see so many different hallucinations which are not actually there, because the Manomaya Kosha has been influenced, has been altered through the LSD. Now let's go back to this example of how the mind puts together the total data into one big scene. Suppose you're watching a space shuttle launch. First of all, what are you going to hear? You're probably going to hear those sound waves, right? So those sound waves are going to enter the ears, and they're going to now contact those very fine hair cells. And those fine hair cells are going to then vibrate. And those vibrations are going to get converted into impulses. And those impulses, those nerve impulses, are going to get sent into the brain, the Annamaya Kosha. The Annamaya Kosha is then going to send that data into the Manomaya Kosha. In other words, the Manomaya Kosha is going to receive what the eyes, what the 5 organs of perception are seeing, and then it's going to put that sound into one total scene. That's just the sound. Now, what else are the eyes seeing? The eyes are seeing color and shape, right? The space shuttle white, the clouds are blue. All of that color and shape also and form gets sent through the eyes into the Manomaya Kosha. So it adds sound plus form. Now it's constructed one scene. And then it's hopefully you're having some candy while you're watching a space shuttle, right? And now it adds the taste buds, the taste being sent into the mind also. And then it sends, what else do they have? If you're smelling the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, that's coming through the ears, through the nose. And that's also being added onto the screen of the mind, which is holding that data together. Have we forgotten any other sense? And tactile feedback. Suppose those vibrations, right? They're now, they're kind of vibrating and your skin is feeling that. That's all, that feeling is also being added onto the screen of the mind. So now the screen of the mind has this one big scene, which we just, without any questioning, just go, wow, give me the popcorn. This is so enjoyable. Let's take the camera, click, click. All of this happening in the background. The relationship between Manomaya Kosha and the 5 organs of perception through the Annamaya Kosha. Vijnana Maya Kosha. What does Vijnana Maya Kosha do? It takes the data from the Manomaya Kosha. So now at this, right, we've got a space shuttle in our minds right now. So now you have to ask, what happens to the scene? Something has to be, you have to process the scene. There's a space shuttle, there's color. What does this all mean? Like, how do I make sense out of this? In other words, the intellect layer takes data from the Manomaya Kosha and makes sense out of it through two ways. Number one, it categorizes the scene. Clouds, people, right? Chair. What is a chair for? Okay, chair is for sitting. In other words, it categorizes objects in the total scene on the screen of the mind. This is called viveka, discernment, discrimination. What is what? It doesn't mix up a person with a space shuttle, or a space shuttle with a bird. It said this is a man-made object and this is a bird. So that's the first function. The second function is it gives meaning or a conclusion to what it processes. Oh, there's a person with color. He's a gangster. What made up that conclusion? The intellect. In other words, the intellect looks at the scene and then it judges, it evaluates what is what. What is the meaning of this? Oh, space shuttle, there's some smoke coming out. Danger. In other words, it gives meaning. It associates meaning to the scene. Oh, someone smells. What does the intellect do then? It moves this Annamaya Kosha maybe 2 meters away. In other words, the intellect assesses the total scene and then it applies viveka through discrimination by categorizing the environment, and two, by putting or adding meaning or conclusion onto what things are. For example, he or she is late. I am not loved. They don't love me, because if they loved me, they would come home on time. They're interested with their friends. They obviously don't love me. What made up that conclusion? Viveka. What about quality time? Oh, you're not spending enough time with me. Right? We're supposed to spend more time together. You only spend 1 hour with me. If you spend 1 hour, then what's my conclusion? You don't love me. If we spend 2 hours, then you love me. Vijnana Maya Kosha. It made a decision. It took the total scene and then it said, this is what this means, here's what that means, and here's what that means. Now, a more important question is, what determines, number one, how the intellect categorizes, and what determines what meaning the intellect decides? That's a more important question, is it not? Okay, we get it. So far, the intellect simply evaluates, puts conclusions here, maybe puts some meaning onto that. But you say, well, what exactly is causing this mechanism, this Vijnana Maya Kosha, to decide that? Why has it chosen option A and not option B? Why does it choose that I'm not loved or not worthy of being loved since my partner is not home on time, instead of being worthy? Why does it choose that? So now we can get more personal, because now we're talking about human behavior, the driving force because of which we think in a certain way. So the answer to this is Karana Sharira. In other words, the causal body. This will come next, and I'll talk about the Karana Sharira. So again, the question was, what makes you think the way that you do? What makes you decide in the way that you do? Answer, Karana Sharira, causal body. Before we get there, carry on with the intellect. What specifically does the intellect mechanism, the buddhi, do? It is responsible for problem solving. If I say right now, what is 2 plus 8? Okay, that's actually maybe too easy because they're probably memorizing. What is 11 times 5? Okay, that's also easy. What is 11? What is 12 times 4? What's 1,048,576 divided by 25 to the power of 19? Lots of problem solving involved, right? But however, you're at whatever level you're at, in fact, you will find some, maths masters, right? They will simply, they will just respond like that. In other words, they're using their Vijnana Maya Kosha, which is responsible for hearing the question, what is 2 plus 8? And that is presented on the screen of the mind. And then the Vijnana Maya Kosha goes, okay, what does the number 2 mean? What does the number 8 mean? And what does the number plus mean? Okay, now let's process that and let's give the conclusion, 10. So problem solving, decision making. If you chose to put maybe 1 gram of sugar and not 2 grams of sugar in your tea, that is done by the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Insights. Oh, I have a big insight, a profound epiphany, a realization of some sort, a discovery, a self-discovery. What happened? The Vijnanamaya Kosha has worked in the background and has delivered that onto the screen of the mind. Discrimination. What is what? Now, inside this buddhi, there's another mechanism called the Ahamkara. What is the Ahamkara? It isolates, it localizes, it contains the experience of the total individual. What is the Ahamkara? Whatever is going on in your 4 koshas, in these 4 koshas, to whom does it belong? It belongs to these 4 koshas. For example, suppose that Lorena is hungry. Suppose Lorena is hungry. Does she start feeding Sandy? Oh, I'm hungry. Open your mouth. What are you doing? I'm feeding myself. Dude, I'm not hungry. Eat. I am. I'm hungry. Well, then why are you feeding me? I'm not feeding you. I'm feeding myself. Open your mouth. Do we do this? No. In other words, we don't confuse the hunger belonging to this body to another person. We don't confuse that thought belonging to that person to this person. So the Ahamkara, therefore, localizes, contains, or isolates whatever is going on in the Annamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha to just those 3 koshas. It doesn't mistake it and puts it onto your wife, onto your husband. This pain belongs to me. Therefore, I will address this. So whenever we say this Ahamkara, think of it as the localizing, containing, isolating principle. Very useful. Now imagine some schools saying, try to destroy the Ahamkara. The Ahamkara in English is ego. That is as good as being on LSD all the time. Could you function like that? You would probably confuse the entire world with everything else. You couldn't make sense of anything. You'd be like, am I right now touching a tissue, or is this a cloth? Is this cup, my partner, or what is this? What's going on here? In other words, we need the Ahamkara in order to make sense of the world. So therefore, there's no question of eliminating the ego. Next is the causal body. This is the Karana Sharira. This is the 5th layer. Karana Sharira means causal body layer. Why is it called the causal body? If it's a causal body, then it's the cause of what? It's that body which causes all of the other bodies, all of the other koshas. So the Karana Sharira causes Vijnanamaya Kosha. Vijnanamaya Kosha causes Manomaya Kosha. Manomaya Kosha causes Pranamaya Kosha. Pranamaya Kosha causes Annamaya Kosha. In other words, it all comes from the Karana Sharira. So what is the Karana Sharira? It is the seed out of which the 4 koshas are formed. Now, what is this Karana Sharira? It has several functions. The first is it stores your Sanchita Karma. What is Sanchita Karma? All of the potential stored effects that came from the actions in all of your past lifetimes. So all of the actions, right, that you do, suppose just forget about last life, just take this life. How many actions are you doing in this life? A lot. Those actions are causing certain consequences. Now, where are those consequences going to go, right? When the body dies, they have to go somewhere. So where do they go? They go inside the Sanchita Karma. In other words, what is Sanchita Karma? It is that place which preserves all of your unexpressed effects, all of the unexpressed effects caused by the actions in previous lifetimes. So for example, suppose 5 days before this person dies, right? And suppose that I go and kill someone. Then where is the effect of that going to go? It has to go somewhere. It's going to go in the Sanchita Karma. Therefore, in the next birth, that Sanchita Karma is then going to offload a portion of itself onto the new life. And that portion is called Prarabdha Karma. So what is Sanchita Karma? all of the that yet to be, all of the effects that are yet to happen in future lifetimes, but haven't yet expressed themselves because you're busy expressing just one lifetime, right? In other words, this lifetime that you're living right now is prarabdha karma. Where is that prarabdha karma coming from? The Sanchita Karma. What is your Sanchita Karma? Infinite amount of effects that are yet to happen in future lifetimes. Of course, now the question is, if there's infinite amount of effects that are yet to happen, then how am I ever going to stop being born, right? We will talk about this later, because obviously moksha is about destroying the karana sharira, the causal body from which nothing else can come. That means no more, because what's the causal body? The seed which produces the other bodies. So if you destroy the causal body, then there is no more 4 bodies to be produced. Therefore, that is the end of rebirth. So number 1, what does the causal body store? Sanchita Karma. What is Sanchita Karma? All of the unexpressed effects stored in one place, assigned to just one person. What is Prarabdha Karma? A portion of that Sanchita Karma taken and assigned to just one specific lifetime. In the Katha Upanishads, it states that at the time of conception, every person is assigned, every jiva is assigned a certain amount of breaths for the sake of exhausting the prarabdha karma. At the time of inception, every person is given a certain amount of, a certain number of breaths. Of course, some people abuse that because, the more you breathe, the more you stressed out, the more breathing, and therefore the shorter it is. So this really changes your relationship if you now think about the health industry. What is the health industry saying? Oh, you can extend your lifetime, right? Just have a little bit of powders and, have a lot of vitamins. We've got the solution for you, extra 25 years. It changes your relationship, number 1. Number 2, ironically, yes, life can be extended through yogic techniques. For example, we have Tirumular in his book Tirumandiram, who wrote in 3,000 verses on different techniques on how to attain certain siddhas, that means certain powers. Now the question is, why did yogis extend their life? Did they just do it for the sake of extending their life? No. There's a certain process to extend one's life for the sake of attaining moksha. In other words, why die early when one can why die early and start one's life again when one can preserve their existing life and therefore use that as an opportunity to ascertain the final reality? So this is the real reason behind these yogic tantra techniques of life extension. We're not talking about the karana sharira. The third topic of karana sharira, it stores the samskaras for everyone, for you. Samskaras means habits or impressions. Habits or impressions just means that power which makes the intellect think the way that it does. There's a certain habit to think in a certain way. Where does that come from? Samskaras. Where is samskaras? The karana sharira. Remember that earlier question that I asked? What makes the intellect decide what meaning it gives onto things and what kind of experience it will generally conclude? Where is that coming from? The karana sharira. Why? Because the karana sharira stores the samskaras, whereas samskaras, habits or impressions. Therefore, they determine how the intellect thinks and what conclusion the intellect will finally put onto the objects on the screen of the mind. For example, if you're born from the past life with a samskara-oriented thought patterns towards music, then you're going to find music completely natural. Others are going to find it really hard. That's why kids can get born and they will suddenly find the piano extremely easy and simple. In fact, I was just watching a show on YouTube of brilliant kids. And there's a 7-year-old who started to play piano at the age of 3. And by the time she was 7, she started to already play like a master. Same with a painter. She's painting these awesome drawings of Jesus and these beautiful portraits and these medals of pictures, and the parents are like, wow, this is amazing. Where is this coming from? And she says, when I'm painting, I'm just immersed. I'm just like totally at one with the experience. I love painting, she says. In other words, why does she love painting? Because it is a samskara coming from the Sanchita Karma. What is Sanchita Karma? That place which stores all of the unexpressed effects. So in this life, she happens to have had a portion taken from that Sanchita Karma, and that portion, called Prarabdha Karma, includes samskaras for painting. Therefore, she finds herself naturally privileged to paint. So these samskaras then shape the jiva's personality by the time they're 13. That's why the older the kids grow, the more you can see their personality flourish. Why? Because their intellect is capable of receiving and processing those samskaras. So it's very hard to tell the true nature of your child while they're still maybe 3, 4, or 5, because their intellect is still not sophisticated in order to take that prarabdha karma, which is being assigned to this life, and thus to have that converted into behaviors or thoughts or the way the person is. So you just wait. By the time they're 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, it's really going to start to come out there. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Oh, what happened? Where did that person go, right?
Free will belongs to which kosha?
Free will doesn't belong to any, because it's an intelligence of itself. In fact, you just always, thank you for following my thought pattern. So through this jiva's free will, we can now say, what is the jiva capable of doing? The jiva can either subscribe to these samskara-based oriented thinking patterns from the past life, or the jiva's intellect, the buddhi, can receive those patterns from the samskaras, and the buddhi can say, wait a minute, let me question this. Why do I want to do this? In other words, free will being assigned to the jiva can either continue those samskara-based oriented thinking patterns, or it can intercept it and say, no, I choose a different way. So this is the privilege of a jiva. It's called free will, purushartha. So Pavan, purushartha, free will, is an order of itself. It's not stored anywhere. It's just an order given to the individual.
Okay.
Just like a biological order is given that preserves, and a physiological order is given to preserve the health of the body without you having to worry about it. In that same way, free will is an order given to the human being.
Sorry, can you explain again why it isn't part of the mind kosha, the Mano kosha? The Vibhuti kosha, the one that discerns. I thought discernment and free choice sound to me correct.
So what captures the ability of free will? The Vijnanamaya kosha. So it's not like it's a sign. It's not like, it's a drop down into the Vijnanamaya kosha. It's provided to the intellect. And the intellect is capable of discerning A from B. But only the human intellect is capable of doing that. So where this free will is stored, that we don't know. But it is an intelligence of itself. It is an order, just like dharma. Like where is your capacity to not hurt stored? Is it stored in the Annamaya kosha? Is it in the Pranamaya kosha? We don't know. But we do know one thing. Dharma is in the heart of every man. Where specifically? Who knows? But we do know it is an intelligence. And how do you know that? Because you don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to hurt others. Where is that specifically captured? In the buddhi. Why? Because the buddhi is capable of thinking about or reflecting about its own behavior. That's what we call a human being is self-aware. What makes it self-aware? The buddhi. Why is the buddhi capable of making a person self-aware? Because it's capable of reflecting consciousness. And I will get on to reflect the consciousness a little bit later because we're jumping up. Is that answering a little bit, Lloyd?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Shiva.
So where does the kshetram or the field, how does it relate to any of these koshas? Is the kshetram limited to the Annamaya kosha, or it sounds to me like more also on the Vijnanamaya kosha?
Okay, good question. So how does the kshetram relate? How does this field relate? We'll use the word field later. How does the kshetram, that which undergoes constant transformation, relate to these 5 koshas? The question is, why did I expound this teaching now? Because it's undergoing transformation. In other words, whatever is kshetram, that is the 5 koshas, is not I. So how does the kshetra relate to the 5 koshas? These 5 koshas are all undergoing change. What is kshetra? That which undergoes change. So I simply added these 5 koshas for the sake of relating it to you, the person. I could have just said body and that's let's move on. But I want to really get specific and get to help us to understand our body. What is it about our experience that undergoes transformation? By understanding that, then we can say, okay, so then whatever transforms, whatever undergoes change, which is those 5 koshas, is not me. Therefore, now the question is, then who am I? That I will come to later. Is that a little bit more clear, Shiva? So the question was, how does kshetra relate to the 5 koshas? So when I say kshetra, from the standpoint of the body, mind, what I really mean is the 5 koshas. I just made it more specific instead of just saying the word kshetra. Okay, so all of this was meaning 1. Remember earlier on I said there's 2 meanings when we said kshetram. Now meaning 2. And this is going to come back to Shiva because he's used the word field. So what is meaning 1 of kshetram? Someone feedback to me, please.
The 5 koshas.
5 koshas, or all that can change. All that
which changes. It undergoes alterations, modifications in any form, shape, manner, at any time, past, present, or the future. That was meaning 1. Now, meaning 2. Kshetram means agricultural land or agricultural field, just field of land. Now the question is, what do you do on a field? Do you just kind of, as a farmer, just have a field, invite your friends and say, hey, look at my field? No. What do we do on a field?
We sow seeds. We harvest food.
Yeah, we throw little seeds into the soil. We throw little seeds into the soil. Why? Just for play of it? Oh, look, today I threw 50 seeds into the soil. And then we go home. We don't do that. We throw seeds, we plant seeds into the soil so that then we can take care of those seeds through our efforts so that those seeds can then grow. And then when they grow, they produce fruit. And when it produces fruit, you just go, hey, nice fruit. Let's take photos and put on Instagram of these fruits. You don't do that. You then consume those fruits and you enjoy them. Depending on how well you've taken care of that seed and how often you've watered it and how many fertilizers, hopefully organic, you've given it, depends on the quality of that fruit which you're now consuming and tasting. If I haven't taken care of my seed, my plant, then the taste will be a manifestation of that care that came in the past. That means how I take care of things is how good or how, quote, bad, how pleasant or unpleasant of the experience I receive. So what does this mean? It means that kshetram is a field. That means this field is a medium by which the seed can produce fruit. It is a medium by which the seed can grow, give out its fruit, and then be consumed. Similarly, let's apply this to you. Kshetra means body. But what is a body? It is a medium by which the causal body, what do we say about causal body? The seed which gives birth to all of the other koshas. So the kshetram is a field, a medium by which the seed can grow into what we call our life. And thus we can consume experiences of whatever that life happens to produce. If it produces on the basis of your samskaras a pleasant life, then you're consuming pleasant fruits. What is kshetram? Number 2, it is a field. In other words, our body is required for the causal body to continue playing out its samskaras, to continue playing out its prarabdha karma. So the body is a field. Now let's take this into a question. What is the logic of rebirth? Because causal body is very closely related to rebirth. What is the logic of rebirth? Why is there rebirth? Let's start with a simple statement. Human beings generally, not everyone, generally want to live forever. Yes or no? Yeah, generally live. Now, We kind of know that's obvious, but the question is why? That's not a question that we often ask. Okay, why do you want to live forever? I want to ask you that.
Fear.
Okay, fear of death, fear of ending my existence. Therefore, I want to live forever.
Yeah.
Good. Why else do we want to live forever?
Life is great. It's enjoyable.
Okay, good. Yeah, Pavan?
It's also some kind of conditioning, I guess.
Okay, so it's some kind of conditioning that tells us, maybe from the movies, ending's always a sad scene, a lot of tears, and everyone's unhappy, and always not a happy moment when there's death, and then that conditioned us to think about death in that same manner, maybe. Why else do we want to live forever? I mean, seriously, okay, I want to live forever. Why?
Don't want to break from our attachments.
What? From what?
From our attachments. We don't want to lose our attachments or break from our attachments.
Good. Okay, so in other words, we're highly dependent for our happiness on something, and as long as that's around, then I don't want to go, because you got food. That's attachment number one. Maybe someone enjoys the rainbow. That's attachment number two, and then we kind of get hundreds of attachments throughout our life. They're very subtle. They can be in the form of books, or surrounding ourselves with libraries of knowledge. That's another attachment. Vedanta can be another attachment, etc. So we don't want to let that go. Robert?
Perhaps because our true nature is eternal, we want to mirror that in our lives.
Super. In other words, there's an inherent, remember what we said sometime early in the sessions, no one is completely ignorant. Everyone has partial knowledge. Just like if you see the snake on the rope, it's not like you're not seeing this rope at all, because if you didn't see the rope at all, there would be no snake. So in other words, superimposition, falsehood, doesn't completely cover up the truth. It covers it partially. Therefore, we partially make out reality. Now, in reference to death, we say, okay, well, I kind of understand that I am eternal. So we all inherently understand that. And then what do? We superimpose that sense of knowledge of eternity, I am eternal, onto what? This body-mind, because after all, I am the body-mind. So then we try to extend the body-mind. Okay, so let's go back to what Luciana said. Why do we want to live forever? The answer is, for the most part, so that I can continue enjoying the fruits of my actions. So that you and I can continue enjoying the enjoyment of what we have done in the past. In other words, to carry on reaping the rewards of our past endeavors. Do you do action for the sake of action? Do you just do action for acting? Or do you do action for the immediate or future reward? Yeah. In other words, do you love just for the sake of loving? Or do you love because you know you're going to receive love back? In other words, we want to live forever. Why? Because we did so many actions in the past. And since we never stopped doing actions, there is more to enjoy. There's always a more, like it's an add-on into the future. Well, I've done this and this and this back then, and now I want to enjoy that in the future. In other words, one simple statement, you've heard this in finances, I want a return on my investment. What kind of investment? On my actions. And for that to happen, I want to live forever. Because when does a person stop doing? Never. As long as, Krishna even said, right? As long as you're alive, you will keep doing. You can't help yourself but to do. To be alive is to do. But to do is to what? Produce action. To produce action is to create an opportunity to enjoy the consequences of those actions in the future. Therefore, why do we want to live forever? Because the person who said that is a doer. And to be a doer is to be an enjoyer. And I want a return on my investment. I've done so many actions back then and I want to enjoy them. The question is, how long does the body last? 90 plus minus years. So now the question is, where will those unfinished rewards of your past actions go? Are they going to go into some junkyard existence? Like some different existence over there in some different universe, just get dumped over there? Where will they go? They got nowhere to go, but back into the Karana Sharira, the causal body, into Sanchita Karma. Therefore, because this instrument, this machine called the body-mind, couldn't live long enough, it died. And therefore, all of those unfinished business, all of that unfinished, yet to be experienced effects on basis of my past actions are going where? Into the Sanchita Karma. And they can't get destroyed. They have to go somewhere. So then what happens? A new birth, in order to continue, a new medium to continue reaping the seed, so that I can continue growing that seed in the form of a body and then enjoy the fruits that it produces, or that it has produced in a previous lifetime. Make sense?
Yeah, but my question was, what is the pramana for the rebirths? That's what.
Pramana for good. So one of the number one is logic, because tell me one effect without a cause. For example, let's stick on logic. You have two twins, right? Same Manomaya kosha, but different paths in life. Why? What makes one brilliant at chanting, Bhagavad Gita chanting from year 3, and the other one brilliant or naturally attracted to, gets themselves into trouble? Very common, right? A child, two from the same bloodline, same genetics, and yet they're attracted to different things. Same opportunity, same resources, same time, but attracted to different things. Why? Where does that come from? A continuation called the Karana Sharira. That's number one. Number two is the scriptures. That's the only two that we have, really. So one of the few things that we cannot actually directly prove is this rebirth, but we do have the scriptures that tell us. So on the basis of the scriptural authority and the logic that they provide on so many other topics, through that alone, we can say then they have made this conclusion, and it is likely accurate. So cause effect, there's not one effect that you cannot find without a cause. And the second pramana is the scriptures themselves, Shabda pramana, the Shruti.
You say that, so we human beings, we want to keep alive because we enjoy life, right? But like a fly also defends life. If you try to kill a fly, it will go away, but a fly doesn't have this knowledge that wants to enjoy life. So something makes also a fly to defend their own life. So why that happens?
Yeah, a fly is still attracted to sugar and sweet things, and it has its own attractions and desires that it in its limited way still wants to pursue those desires.
Okay, a fly has desires. Nice way to put it. Oh, I like, that's a fine fly. I want to go for that fly and not this fly, right? So.
No, but why does the fly go for some sugar or some sweet thing? It goes to that. Or if it goes for some piece of dog shit, it would go for that, It's got its own desires, its own likes and dislikes,
The instinct?
Yeah, so that's what I want to bring. Yes, it is a desire, but I also put it in a form of a mechanical programmed instinct. It looks like a desire, but I would just, be a little bit more refined with words. I would just definitely say it's more of an instinct, an incorporated instinct. Even a dog, right? It doesn't have a desire to mate. It's just incorporated to reproduce. It's built in. Yeah, so desire is only applicable to a human being. That means we develop desires that were not there. Before, I'm not interested in computer games. And then someone shows me computer games, I'm kind of get into it, and suddenly I have a desire for computer games, right? And that's what we call this itcha.
But a dog must feel an experiential pleasure when it reproduces, when it mates with another dog. It must have a feeling of pleasure to do that, which is what drives it to do it again and again. It's not just doing it because I want to make puppies. I mean, it doesn't have that intelligence. I'm just going to make puppies and that's why I'm doing it. It's doing it because it feels good.
It does feel, I don't know if it feels good. We have to ask a dog, dog doesn't know dog language. See, if it really had this kind of pleasure that we speak like a human being, then there would also you have to now give free will to the dog so that the dog can kind of enjoy it again. So if you look at a dog, right, it doesn't mate just because it's pleasurable. It mates because it's an urge. It's an urge to reproduce. Now, whether it enjoys it or not, I'm not sure, but it's still programmed to reproduce.
Yeah, it's got an itch. It wants to scratch.
Yeah, it wants to scratch the itch. Yeah. Okay, so also wanted to say that every human being is endowed with three powers. The power to know, that is Jnana Shakti, the power to desire, Icha Shakti, and the power to and the power to Kriya Shakti. Power to do, power to desire, power to know. So these three powers is what a human being is endowed with. And for example, desiring, I desire X and not Y. And because I can desire, I am thus given free will. In fact, because I'm given free will, I can desire or not. But a dog is not given free will. It is a mechanical, instinctual, programmed response. Therefore, it does it on the basis of what it's being given. It can make basic decisions, right? Like not go onto the road and then avoid the traffic, but it cannot make as in, so if this kind of truck keeps on going, then for the next 1 minute, then it's going to hit me. It doesn't do that. It just responds on its immediate environment.
Well, that's the difference between learned behavior and instinctual behavior.
Yes, it also has learned behavior, yeah. Trained behavior.
Can we say that dog doesn't have Jnana Kosha and whatever samskaras are there inherent in a dog profile, if you like, they pass through straight away into Manomaya Kosha and act instinctively? Can we say that dog doesn't have the Jnana Kosha?
It does. It does.
Where is the buddhi? Where is the discrimination occurs? Because if you say the dog acts on his or her instincts, then it means there is no power to discriminate, and it's just playing by instinct. So then the power of discrimination is lacking, or probably it is just not. Maybe it just doesn't exist.
Yeah,
a dog does have power to discriminate through its learned behavior.
Yeah, it's just not as sophisticated as an intelligent human being. So dog has Annamaya Kosha, definitely. It is food. It eats food. Manomaya Kosha, it does experience emotions, a happy dog, a sad dog. Pranamaya Kosha, digestion, right, excretion. Intelligence, obviously, you can, like Australian shepherd, right, extremely intelligent. You can train them and they can make decisions. So for that, so if the dog sees sheep, then the dog will go after them. That requires decision making. That requires a certain level of buddhi.
Wouldn't that just come directly from samskaras?
Yeah, but samskaras still need to manifest at the level of buddhi in order to have this mechanism called dog form to do what it does. In other words, the samskaras need a mechanism to communicate with the Annamaya Kosha. What is that intercepting mechanism? The Vijnanamaya Kosha.
So do animals accumulate karma, or how do they go on to the next birth if they don't accumulate?
Sure. Okay. So animals are only born to exhaust. They do not generate new karma. So if the dog bites you, it's not going to generate papa karma and then suffer its next life consequences. It's only born, whatever animal you see in this world, it's only born to exhaust. That's why you'll see like a little insect. In fact, the smaller the insect, the higher chance of exhausting its karma, because you don't even see who you're stepping on, right? In other words, their exhaustion is very quick. And then you got these more sattvic animals like elephants, and they kind of last a lot longer, right? But still, it is a hard life for an animal. You still need to, exhaust your karma through constant pursuit of food and predatory animals, and watch out for your environment. And then you got the weather conditions. The African elephants need to move 3,000 miles from south to north each year in Africa. So it's a very hard life to be an animal. Even a bird, you think it's so free. Is it really free? When it lands down, it's so afraid, right? You just want to kind of see it with a photograph, and it already flies away.
Where does the karma, where does it originate from then?
It is still a karana sharira. So a dog has its own seed, karana sharira, and that seed, once exhausted in a human, in an animal form, then it can be reborn as something else. For example, there's a nice story that I've heard my first teacher, James Schwartz, said. There was a couple who really enjoyed intimacy. And when, they decided that one day, whoever goes first will kind of come back from heaven, and it will say, if there is sex in heaven. And the husband comes back to the wife, in one day, fine, quiet room. And the wife's like, oh, you came back. So is there sex in heaven? And he says, yeah, absolutely. I'm in heaven, and, there's a lot of it. And then the wife is like, well, where are you? And he goes, I am a rabbit in Arizona, like a little grass field. In other words, the husband enjoyed sex a lot, but so did the wife. So what happened? Instead of being born as a human being, rather be born as an animal to exhaust that karma so that you can get reborn as a human being and continue your life without being just totally overwhelmed by sexual thoughts. In other words, there's an intelligence that manifests the right body for the strongest form of desire to be exhausted. And how is that desire? This is coming back to what Martin was saying. How does that desire get exhausted? Through the animal form most suitable to exhaust that particular samskara. Yeah, so the rabbit's definitely getting a lot of action, because that's what the human being wants. So in other words, be careful, what kind of person should in fact be, remain being a human being, because if the person is just living on a basis of reproduction and sensual pleasure and all of that, then it is very likely that the very dog that you have as your pet was probably a human being at some point in a lifetime doing some fishy business. And now you're petting the dog going, oh, nice dog. We don't know. But the point is, Vedas are very clear. In other words, the jiva is not just the jiva from the standpoint of the human being. Jiva can also be an insect, can also be a plant, can also be an animal, a mammal.
So how does the jiva relate to the karana sharira? So is that the unit that is being reborn and accumulates?
Yeah, karana sharira is the seed which is ignorance. So karana sharira is ignorance itself. So this ignorance, what is ignorance? I am whatever gets born out of this karana sharira. So in this case, it is the body. So what's causing the person to say, I am this body, mind? It is one's ignorance. Now the question is, what is ignorance? Ignorance is not knowing who I am. So now your question is, how does this now relate to the human being? Upon knowledge, when self-knowledge takes place, when you recognize that these 5 shariras are nothing but kshetram, then you realize, so whatever is happening right now, whatever life this person is living is coming out of karana sharira, because you're guided through your samskaras, right? But am I this karana sharira? Am I these 5 koshas? No. So the moment you realize that, then that is as good as destroying the karana sharira. Therefore, upon death, there is no rebirth. Because rebirth depends on ignorance for the person to be reborn. But if you take care of that ignorance while alive, then upon death, what is there to be reborn when you remove the ignorance? And what is removal of ignorance? Destroying the karana sharira.
So jivan mukta.
Jivan mukta, yeah.
If desires, if a summation of desires become the karana sharira, then wouldn't killing all desires would indirectly kill the karana sharira?
No, because remember what I said earlier, Sanchita Karma is infinite lifetimes, place where the infinite lifetimes are stored of effects to be expressed yet. And you only receive one single portion of that infinity, and that is called prarabdha karma. So whatever desires you destroy, what are you destroying? You're just destroying desires in that one little portion called prarabdha karma, but you still got Sanchita Karma, right? So this means the person can play out all of their desires, become a total pure soul. What have they addressed? They have addressed 1 out of infinity. So there is no solution right there. Yes, Robert?
Also, if you manage to destroy their desires, you will be left with the desire to destroy those desires.
Yeah, and also you're also forming new desires, because as long as a person is born, they will be attracted to something. So it's not about eliminating desires, it's about changing your relationship to desires. Recognizing this instrument is just an instrument of the Lord. And not getting too hooked up, like not getting too caught up with this instrument. It's just an instrument. So whatever desires you're clearing desires of what? The karana sharira. What do we just say? The 5 koshas is transforming. It is kshetram. And who am I? Other than kshetram, which I will get to soon. However, I have to put a disclaimer. If the person doesn't address their desires, what's going to happen? They're going to continue their desires. In other words, they will get distracted and not remove their ignorance, because an ignorant mind that is constantly extroverted will not have time to inquire into the nature of the self. So yes, you do need to manage your desires, but destroy them, that is impossible. How do you manage? By changing your relationship to them.
what is then, just a follow on quick one, what is then Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks about disinterested action?
Disinterested action, right. So there's a nice story in the Upanishads where the apple was ripe, right? And it was ready to fall down. And then a crow lands on the apple. And then just as it lands, the apple effortlessly falls down. And the crow's like, oh, you see how powerful I am? It was because of me that the apple fell down. In other words, so the crow started to take interest in its actions, right? It kind of got fascinated. It's me, I'm the one that did it. But is it really that it did it, or is it that the apple was already ripe? In other words, only to the crow's ignorance of the total field, of how many variables are included to make things be as they are, the crow thus concluded that it was its responsibility, its power that made the apple fall. So it took interest. So when Krishna says, don't take interest in your actions, it simply means take notice of how many things took place for those results to be in your life. You're not entirely responsible. There are many variables that contributed to that event.
Can dispassionate action lead to burning of prarabdha karma?
Can dispassionate action lead to...
Yeah, same as like disinterested action or acting with renunciation. Can that lead to prarabdha karma being, starting to recede or starting to burn?
Sure. So see, again, we're not trying to there's a different approach to this. And what Vedanta says, you need to understand what is reality, first of all. Now, when you understand reality, it's not like you're trying to destroy anything. You're just changing your relationship. For example, something concrete. Suppose that as a parent, right, in a kindergarten, and a parent is now, the kids are playing, right? And they're totally fascinated about these toys because that's their prarabdha karma, right? But the parent is just able to witness, watch and take care of whatever's going on. It's not like the parent goes, oh, wow, this is so fun. Let me go and jump in with the kids. In other words, the parent simply recognizes what is the nature of these toys. By recognition of the nature of those toys, the parent doesn't jump into and get lost in. It's able to play and enjoy, but it's also able to pull back. So your question is, when a person changes their relationship through understanding what reality is, then they automatically, as though, are not moved or pulled by their desires. Therefore, their prarabdha karma doesn't have as much effect onto them. Okay, so summary so far. Okay, what is kshetram? Summary. Whatever is experienced in the past, present, and future, whatever it is. Yeah, what about that also? Why? Because that's an experience. Yeah, but that's also because there was an experience. When? Now. It happened right now. I don't believe it. That's also an experience. Why? Because there was a thought in the Vijnanamaya Kosha happened right now. Kshetram. Whatever is experienced in the past, present, or the future is kshetram. Whatever is changing in quality or quantity in time is kshetram. Now I feel more relieved. Now I feel less relieved. Now I feel more clear. Now I feel less clear. Kshetram. Oh, I'm totally confused right now. Kshetram. Because it is changing in quality and quantity. Yes, Robert.
If whatever is experienced is kshetram, does this mean that the self, the Atman, can't be experienced?
Right now, I'm not at Atman yet. So let's stick to anything that is an object of knowledge. So whatever happens in time, including dream time, is kshetram. I had a dream last night. Well, who hasn't, right? Kshetram. Because when did it happen? When was that experience? In time. What does kshetram include? Body, mind, and this universe. They're all made up of the same content. In the Vedic model, the 5 elements, or the 3 gunas, which I will discuss later, these 5 elements of the 3 gunas. Any other questions about kshetram before we move on to kshetrajna? And then we can go on to Robert.
So would it be right to say everything that is knowable is kshetra?
Yes, anything that is an object of knowledge. Object of knowledge, glass. See, even that question right now, Shiva, right? That was an object of knowledge. That's why you asked me. If it wasn't an object of knowledge, you would have never brought it up. So no matter what you reply, what you think of at any moment of time, past, present, or future, will be under the category of kshetram. Even if you say I, kshetram, because you said that right now, and you didn't say that just a moment ago. Category number 2, kshetrajna. New headline. Okay, first of all, what is kshetram? Let's go back to the revision. Any experienced object. Any whatsoever, in your mind, in your thoughts, in your emotions, at any one of these 5 koshas, kshetram. So whatever is happening in the emotions, in the Manomaya kosha, whatever you're feeling, oh, I feel enlightened, kshetram. Oh, I feel so expansive, kshetram. Why? Because feeling is in the Manomaya kosha. I'm very smart, kshetram. Why? Because that conclusion was made where? In the Vijnanamaya kosha. I feel so energized. Oh, I must be in touch with Bhagavan right now. Kshetram. Why? Pranamaya kosha. Whenever you feel energized, that wasn't there just a moment ago, it is now. In other words, it came in time. Kshetram. I have a doubt. What about kshetram? Where is doubt? Vijnanamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha. I don't believe you. Again, kshetram. That's a conclusion in Vijnanamaya kosha. No matter what you say at any moment of time, even at death, you know, when those people sometimes they report, you know, having experiences, oh, you know, I died and then I saw my body there and then I was like with the angels. I saw the light, right? What was the light? Object of knowledge. What was, you know, they say, I saw Jesus, I saw, you know, my personal deity. Kshetram. Why? It came in time and it is an object of knowledge. No matter what you say at any moment of time, in any world, in any loka, kshetram.
Even if it's false.
Even if it's false. Well, false or true, that's just the, you know, the perception, the conclusion of the intellect. Or do you mean something else philosophical when you say that? False?
No, if I said, for instance, I am a woman,
yeah,
which is clearly false and I'm delusional.
Yeah. Yeah, that's still, yeah, because yes, because that just took place in your mind, right? Because see, any thought takes place where? In the mind. No matter what you say about anyone is taking place where? In one of the 5 koshas, specifically the Manomaya kosha and the Vijnanamaya kosha, in the mind or the intellect.
Andre?
Yes?
I've just got a question about what Vedanta talks about with telepathy.
Remind me, telepathy, give me a definition of it.
Well, I guess it's connecting with someone else and having a feeling of what they're going through or a thought that comes through from them. Someone's in trouble or something like that.
Good. Excellent example. I remember some years ago when my mom's mom died, my grandmother, and the night that she died, my mom had a dream of her dying. Is that the example of telepathy, right? You just know. In fact, a lot of parents would know this, right? Your kids are in trouble and you just have this sense, you can't explain it. And that is, in Kelsey's terms, telepathy. So this is also an intelligence, an intelligent order, except this is, you know, it's an intelligence that's able to, you know, pick up on things that are related to you. There is also kshetram. Because it wasn't there a moment ago, and now it is. Therefore, it's in time. Kshetram.
Andre, so kshetram can be like a field of experience. Anything you experience in a field, then that's a kshetram.
Absolutely. Including the experience of you having now told me that, and the experience of now me talking and replying to you. This is all an experience right now. This webinar is an experience. Kshetram. It is an object of knowledge. Oh, I had a webinar last night, and here's what happened. All of this is knowledge known. Kshetram. In other words, anything that can be objectified, turned into an object of knowledge. It is known. So, knowing this, what does this now presuppose? It presupposes a reality that objectifies the kshetram. In other words, this reality is not kshetram, Because so far, what have we been talking about? Things are objectified constantly, constantly, constantly. There's nothing you can say that is not objectified. So what does this now imply? It implies there must be a reality that keeps on objectifying. For example, suppose now you say, okay, what is this reality that is not kshetram? Because remember, we said everything is kshetram, but now you say, what is this reality that is not kshetram? My question now to you is, counter question, where did that question take place? In the Vijnana Kosha. What does this mean? You are already enjoying this reality. Because we just said, in the presence of this reality that is not kshetram, in the presence of that reality, the kshetram is objectified. Even when Kelsey asked the question, that was an object of knowledge called telepathy. It was a thought. Something objectified that thought. So what does this mean? You are never not enjoying this reality, which is capable of objectifying, or in whose presence the kshetram gets objectified. In the presence of this other reality, kshetram gets objectified. Let me give you another example. Look at some object in a room, please, now, and keep looking at it. Find some object. While you're looking at this object, or let's remove the word you, while this object is being seen, it's being objectified because of the eye, the physical eye, that is, right? So right now, keep looking. That object that you're looking at, that's being seen, it's seen, why? Why is it being objectified right now? Because of the physical eye. Keep looking. So what does this mean? The fact that the eye can objectify presupposes the existence of the eye, of the physical eye. In other words, even though the physical eye cannot perceive itself, the fact that there is perception shows that there is the presence of the physical eye. You can now stop looking. You understand this logic? So the eye can objectify everything except itself. But the fact that there is objectification implies the presence of that which objectifies. You understand this? So even though the eye cannot perceive itself, it doesn't matter. The fact that there is perception implies the presence of that which perceives. In this case, the eye. Another example, any photograph you look at right now on Instagram, or even as yourself as a child, look at any photograph whatsoever. What does the photograph imply? The presence of the photographer. Do you see the photographer? Never. But in other words, wherever there is a photograph, a scene must mean there must be one in whose presence or because of whom the photograph is taken. In this case, the photographer. So this means you don't have to now say, I don't believe in the photographer, he's not there. Just the mere fact of the photograph implies the existence of the photographer. Just the mere perception right now implies the presence of the eye. In that same way, the mere fact of everything that's being perceived, everything that we've talked about, the kshetram, the 5 koshas, implies what? There is a reality that is in whose presence that kshetram being perceived. And when are you not perceiving your thoughts? In fact, every question that you posed in this webinar was nothing but an object of knowledge in the Vijnana Kosha. In other words, it was perceived, which means what? There is a reality in whose presence that thought was perceived. Thus, you called it out and asked the question. And this reality that we're talking about, this illumining, this awareing, this conscious reality is called kshetrajna. In other words, whatever is perceived, whatever is known, implies the presence of a conscious subject. The conscious subject is kshetrajna, the one in whose presence everything is being known. What is the known? Kshetram. And finally, before we close, the question is, what is the description of Kshetrajna? Kshetrajna is not a part, product, or property of the body. You cannot now look inside and go, oh, where's this Kshetra? Is it in the Vijnanamaya Kosha, huh? Oh, it's in the Manomaya Kosha. It's in the leg. It's in the heart. Just go within and just discover yourself. You know, just go deep within and find yourself. Dude, it is not a part, product, or property of the body. You ain't going to find it anywhere. 2, it is an independent reality. It is an independent reality that pervades the body, that pervades the mind, that pervades the body-mind instrument, and thus makes it sentient, thus makes it self-aware of itself. So by the very pervasion of this body-mind, the body-mind is able to be aware of its own thoughts, of its own sensations. Why? Because it is objectified. In whose presence? Kshetrajna. Kshetrajna is not limited by the boundaries of this body-mind instrument. It extends beyond this body-mind instruments. Just like space. Space is not just inside this cup. That space inside is also everywhere. And finally, Kshetrajna continues even after the body perishes. The body perishes, the mind perishes, even the causal body perishes, but this Kshetrajna does not perish. This reality does not perish. And this reality, Kshetrajna, is who you really are. I am. Whenever you say I am, that I am is referring to Kshetrajna, the one that never perishes, the one in whose presence Kshetram is objectified. Finally, who says all this? The verse says, Tad Vidaha. In other words, those jnanis, those rishis who have figured this out for thousands of years, and thus put it inside our Shastra, Itihasa, Smriti, Shruti, and thus we are now benefiting from this knowledge. Who has figured this out? The rishis or the jnanis. The ones that have expounded this methodology through a pramana, a means of knowledge, this lineage, Advaita Vedanta, which we are now using for the benefit of ourselves. Those ones. And therefore, we will now further see the next session next week, when we will get even deeper into this topic. This is just an introduction. So Krishna is going to talk about a lot more about this total reality. So this is just to let us know the most important topic to understand, and that is Kshetra and Kshetrajna, which I will continue and re-emphasize next week, because this is the topic of every Vedic Shastra to understand. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.